Okay, welcome to the regular Sunday Lovecraft eZine show. Today is May the 3rd, 2015. And, oh, happy birthday to W.H. Pugmire today, isn't it, guys? I think it is.
Happy birthday, Hot
Yeah.
Dog.
So, other than that, there's absolutely nothing going on that I could give news for. King and Yellowtails will be out in a week or so, week and a half, let's say, because a lot of people keep asking since we published the photo the other day. Anyway, really happy to have my two guests here today, and the first guy we're going to interview here is Joshua Hoffine. I'm sorry, am I saying your last name right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Joshua Hoffine.
And he's a horror photographer, that's extremely interesting. And then later on, we're going to talk to Sean Hoade, author of Dead Town Abbey, and I know a few other things too.
Yeah.
I guess my first question for you, and guys, please feel free to jump in as usual. But Josh, so you're a horror photographer. I mean, how does something like that start?
Well, I had been a photographer for a few years, and I love horror movies. I really had a secret burning desire to make a horror movie. And one night in conversation, it kind of came out in my thoughts that there was no horror photography. You have horror movies and novels and video games and bands and comic books, but no one had actually put a flag down and said, this is horror photography. And so that's exactly what I started to do. And rather than doing it as composited in Photoshop, I treated it like real photography. We built real sets, we built practical monsters. I would use my own kids in the photographs, and I just started making what were the equivalent of movie stills from movies that didn't exist.
Yeah, I looked up a few of those. That's really great stuff. I'm sorry, I should have said the prizes we're going to give away today were to random viewers. 2 copies of Sean's book, Dead Town Abbey, and then Matt's got, let me put you on the screen, Matt. Cthulhu Rising by who?
It is by John Mackley. 2 copies.
Okay, so anyway, Josh, you got a Kickstarter going on, the Innsmouth project. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I became friends with the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, people out in San Pedro when they brought me out last year because their theme was Innsmouth. And they were trying to pair me together with Joel Harpo to possibly do a project based on that story. And things were going well. I wrote a big project, and then Joel had to go off and shoot Alice in Wonderland 3. And so it took a couple months, but I regrouped with the new team, and we started making monsters over the winter. And about 2 weeks ago, we launched a Kickstarter campaign so that we could build a set large enough to approximate a city street in Innsmouth.
Oh, really? That big? Wow, that's great.
Yes, that's the passion project right now, and just trying to find all the Lovecraft people to tell them, because outside of the Lovecraft world, it's kind of a lot of explanation on my part trying to explain what Innsmouth means. And so I've been educating all of my traditional fans about the importance of Lovecraft over the last few weeks.
Who are your traditional fans? General horror fans, or?
Yeah, general horror fans, and a lot of them obviously know about Lovecraft also, but I would say for the mainstream audience, their knowledge of Lovecraft is too often limited to Reanimator and Cthulhu. And so if I'd done a Cthulhu project, it might have been a home run without much education necessary. But The Shadow over Innsmouth, for even your average movie or horror fan, it's taken a few moments for me to stop and explain what it is and why in the world I would want to do it.
I think you're probably right, but in a lot of ways, Cthulhu is so overdone, so I'm glad you didn't go that way.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to do a Cthulhu project, but this started with a partnership with a special effects artist named J. Anthony Kozar. And a couple of years ago, we did our first Kickstarter campaign for a zombie project. When Walking Dead was sort of at its peak of popularity, it's now or never on zombies. But what I liked about that project was having a whole lot of monsters in the frame instead of just one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We were talking about possible follow-up ideas. The Shadow over Innsmouth just plugged in perfectly because it is the original story where someone's being chased through the streets by a mob of monsters.
And ironically, the guy who's known in Hollywood for, I guess, being the go-to guy that studios want to hire when they need a monster or an alien or the guy on Buffy the Vampire Slayer or whatever, Doug Jones, but he's not going to be made up for this. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the protagonist, right?
Yeah, that's true.
How did that come about? What made you guys reverse that?
Well, it's funny how it came out. I was trying to find someone for the photograph, and because it was kind of an uphill pitch, I was trying to find some sort of horror celebrity that might be able to play the human victim. We were trying to contact Elijah Wood. I was seriously considering Jeffrey Combs because of his connection with Lovecraft. And my new producer, my friend Chad, said, well, have you considered Doug Jones? I said, no, I hadn't thought about Doug Jones. And he knew him a little bit. And so I started thinking about how great it would be to have Doug Jones, especially out of makeup, because that's how everyone knows him. And if you're watching and you're not sure who we're talking about, Doug Jones played Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies. Yeah. He's a Del Toro regular, so he was the Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth. He was also the Fawn. He's played so many characters. He's probably the most famous suit performer in the world. And you've seen him probably 50 times, but didn't know that was the guy.
Yeah.
So when we pitched it to him, Doug loved the idea that he would actually be able to play his own face and that he was going to be surrounded by monsters. And I teased him. I said, it's kind of a metaphor for your life and career. And he just laughed and said, yeah. He thought it was perfect and signed up without a moment of hesitation.
See, you left out his greatest
Go ahead.
What, Pete? You left out Doug Jones's greatest appearance ever.
Which one's your favorite?
He's Bullet Man in Mystery Men.
Is he really?
Yes.
I gotta go. I didn't know that one. That's awesome.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, when they're doing auditions. Oh no, wait! It's not Bulletman. It's Eraserhead, and he has this little son, Eraserhead, son of Eraserhead. Yeah, never. Oh God, yes.
That's it. That's such a great movie.
Definitely.
And ironically, I think I've only seen him. With his real face in one other performance, and that was like a week or two ago in Arrow. He played a bad guy in Arrow with
He's
powers.
also in John Dies at the End.
Oh, is he?
John Dies at the End too.
With his regular face?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the thing is that Joshua kind of lucked out a little bit because Doug has a little bit, without his makeup on, a little bit of the Innsmouth look, you know? So, I mean, for him to be part of the degenerate bloodline, like you find out at the end, it's just perfect.
Yeah, he's got a great face. I saw his face and I thought, this is perfect. This is better than what I was thinking before.
And I'll tell you what, I don't know him personally, but everything I hear, he's just one of the nicest celebrities, nicest actors you could ever meet. So
it's beyond that, Mike. Honestly, and I say this without exaggeration, he might be the nicest man on the planet. He's like a human ray of sunshine. He's a human unicorn, like a children's show host. He is just the nicest man. I met him. He's like, my precious Joshie, and he's just, I don't know. It's overwhelming how kind he is.
Man, I think we might be. Can you mute? Can you mute?
Sure.
Let's try that. Yeah. Well, no. It's up at the top. Well, no. It's up at the top. Yeah, I'm definitely echoing.
I'm gonna reboot and see what.
Okay, no problem. Thanks. I got a question. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
The bad guy Doug Jones played on Arrow was Deathbolt.
Right.
Yeah, Doug is great. I'm super excited to, get to hang out with him for a day.
I'm really interested in. Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead, Sean. It's fine.
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm really interested in, after watching your Kickstarter video. I did some studying. I'm really curious about you giving away the monster creations as part of a reward for the Kickstarter things. I think that's genius because if you look at the video, they are scary looking.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had mentioned that the project was originally sort of considered for Joel Harlow, who's a special effects makeup artist, an Oscar-winning special effects makeup artist, and he loves Lovecraft, and he had already created these great Innsmouth monsters. So when we switched over to Kozar, I had to give him some new direction so that it didn't look anything like Harlow's designs. And Harlow's designs were very sympathetic. They look like people that have become ill in a way. And so I encouraged my man Kozar to make them into something scarier. And we were looking at piranhas and anglerfish, those weird fish that float at the bottom of the ocean with the lights in front of their face, saying it should be more like that. It's got to be a monster. So I'm really pleased with the way he made them look. They're going to be really scary in the photo.
Yeah, good question, Sean. Which reminds me to ask you about. It seems like you have a plethora of awards for your Kickstarter. It looks like a really great Kickstarter. Can you talk about those a little bit? What else do you have?
You know what? The rewards this time they are amazing. My producer, Chad, was the one that sort of spearheaded how to approach that because he's a Kickstarter addict. He's always on there. He kind of had a better feel for what people wanted as opposed to how he'd done in the past. So a lot of them are photographs of the final image, but because we have all these creatures being made, we're doing portraits of them also in the vintage style with vintage cameras, like their traditional wet plates, so that we can sort of create almost authentic replicas of what it would have been like in Innsmouth. And to keep that idea beyond just going with these vintage portraits, we have this whiskey bottle that Zarduk Allen's been drinking from, a key to room 428 of the Gilman House in Innsmouth, a postcard from Innsmouth, come for the fishing, stay for the sacrifices, all sorts of like these fun ideas that were just augmented out of Chad's brain. Like, if I were a Lovecraft fan, you know what I would want? It's like, yeah, I would too. And then Kozar, my makeup artist, is going to be doing little maquettes of his creatures as well as full-size masks and busts so that you can actually own one of these great special effect pieces he's creating.
So basically, at a lot of reward levels, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to get pieces of the project, so to speak. So.
And it's cumulative. Like if you go in for higher levels, you get more and more stuff. You get the postcards, you get postage stamps, you get a locket, and it just goes on and on how much stuff we kind of crammed in for real Lovecraft people. Yeah. And I thought that would be the secret to getting this done, was really trying to find Lovecraft people that knew what I was talking about and would appreciate all the detail that we had put into it.
Well, I get so many Lovecraftian projects sent to me asking me to promote them, and in your case, if I remember right, I actually contacted you. You didn't contact me. It looked like just such an interesting project, So, I saw a comment from somebody online somewhere. I don't remember where it was, and they said, "Okay, $20,000. That's a lot for a photograph." And I think we need to address that because I don't think it's a fair question because people don't realize what's all going into this moment, this picture that you're taking. Like you said, a whole city block. Can you talk about everything that's going into this?
Yeah, I mean, when you get to those kind of budgets through Kickstarter, you also have to take into account what it costs to create and ship all of the rewards. And it adds almost an additional 40% to the budget requirement. And I would say 90% of what we really needed was to cover all the monsters. Because I didn't want to do it with Photoshop. I didn't want to use one monster and duplicate them as a crowd. We were making, a dozen of these monsters. And they're movie-worthy. It's Hollywood-level special effects. And at $10,000 for that out of cost, it's a steal. And everyone was working for free. You're talking about almost just $10,000 worth of materials. And then we have to fly Doug in. You have to put up a crew of almost 30 people and feed them for the course of one day. But it adds up fast. Even with everyone working for free, it adds up fast.
Yeah.
And
most of these guys.
City block, it's a big set, and it takes a lot of people, including 3 or 4 carpenters, to put it all together for me.
What do you have there besides the monsters? What do you have to build?
Well, you can sort of see a concept sketch on our Innsmouth page he's leaning against a wall, so most of the composition really is sort of a detailed alleyway wall. But behind the crowd, you can see the skyline and the sky itself. And so rather than doing miniatures or something digital, we're trying to build the equivalent of a skyline out of styrofoam paints, small windows, little bitty bricks, and create like a foreshortened trick camera shot so that even though it's only 15 feet behind them, it looks like it's an entire city behind them.
Right.
It just takes a lot of ingenuity and patience to get all the details and perspectives right so that it looks convincing to the eye.
Right.
That reminds me of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula film.
Oh, yeah.
All of that was practical photography, as you may know.
Cool.
All of it, where the book's open and the train's going by, they've made a giant book, and they had a train go by in the background, and it makes it just feel so much more authentic to me.
You know, it's
and
so fun that you
I
brought
find that exciting.
That is the movie I watched over and over and over again as research for my Innsmouth project because of his special effects. And if I were to do an Innsmouth movie, which is not really something I'm fighting for, but if I did, that's exactly how I would do it, so that it's just like Coppola's Dracula with nothing but old school 1930s era special effects.
So impressive.
It would be awesome, and I love that movie. I know Keanu Reeves is terrible, but it's made up for all of the sets and special effects, and I think Gary Oldman's got to be my favorite Dracula. No offense to Lugosi, but he's just awesome in that movie.
I think people forget that Jonathan Harker really isn't all that bright. So maybe Keanu was a good choice.
Maybe so. Maybe he captured the spirit of the character.
Got a couple audience questions so far. Kimberly wants to know what would be your dream project if you had unlimited funds, time, actor availability, etc.
You know, I'm trying to finish all my photography projects this year to publish a book next year, but then I want to make a movie. And I've been working on it for about 5 years, but I have one version with no money, another version if I have some money, and a third version if I have all the money I can handle. And it basically comes back to wanting to do things like Francis Ford Coppola with miniatures, forced perspectives, practical effects, and create an almost Fellini-type environment of artificiality. And then I get all the way down to run-and-gun guerrilla style where it's going to be shot in my own suburbs. And so if I had all the money in the world, I think I would just build an entire world.
There's a story about when David Lynch made Dune, where he hired craftsmen to come in and design all the sets for the palace in Arrakis.
Yeah.
And then they came in and they shot for a week or so. And then they were done with it. And it was just bulldozed away. And it turned out not to be foam and stand-ups. They actually carved huge.
Yeah. I remember that story because he got frustrated that he couldn't move the set apart to put his camera in places, and they built it like a permanent structure.
Yes. It's essentially they actually essentially built a small palace.
And all those sandworms had to go to shelters. That's the really sad part.
Yeah, that is the yeah. Whatever you do, when it's Spikes Day, do not give your children baby sandworms as pets.
No, it's inadvisable.
If you're bigger, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah, speaking of children, you have a unique way to scare your kids, I read. They don't look too scared. They look like they're the scaries.
They were in on it, for sure.
But can you talk not only about those previous projects that your kids were in, but just that and the Pickman's Model project as well?
Yeah, you know, the first work that I did was based on childhood fears. And if anything, that's kind of what went through the internet the most. That was what was most published and built up a little bit of a fan base for me to do future projects. And it was maybe a year or two after I'd finished photographing my kids that I was contacted by Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine because they were going to do a Lovecraft issue and wanted to know if I would do something on Pickman's Model. And I went and I bought the story, I read it, and it kind of blew my mind because, like Pickman, I felt so much like Pickman was me. This was a guy who was good at what he did, but his subject matter was so unsettling and so scary that he was rebuffed by the mainstream art world and was forced literally to work underground. And I thought, well, yeah, I get this. This is great. And so I put it together like it was a scene from a movie with 5 pictures walking him through the moment when he brought his client into his studio to look at his masterpiece, and then finishing on the final frame or whatever he's seeing. And it was important to me that you not see what the painting was, but whatever he's looking at has just blown his mind, like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, or looking into the Ark at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I just loved it. And so it was that brought the attention of my work to the film festival, the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in San Pedro. And so just on the strength of that request, I'm trying to do Innsmouth, and if I can do this one, I'm going to do another Lovecraft project because I love Lovecraft. I don't really have a lot of desire to do other people's material or other people's stories. Except when it comes to Lovecraft, there's such a long-standing tradition of participating in his mythos that it seems like the most legitimate thing in the world to get involved. I'm part of a long-standing tradition in dialogue, and so it feels like I'm being legit even though I'm doing other people's ideas for once.
Well, that leads into another reader question. Joshua says, if this Kickstarter is successful, would there be, well, you just answered that, another Mythos project? But I guess my question leading off that is, what do you think you might do next, or what are you interested in? Or have you thought about it at all?
Well, if I were to do another one, just because it's the biggest, I might try to do a project based on Cthulhu. It would depend a little bit on finding the right artist to work with. Joe Harlow, who I'd mentioned before, has the greatest Cthulhu sculpture I've ever seen. And if I could somehow partner with him, it might be possible to do a large-scale photograph that looked like it was out of a movie and not have to use any Photoshop. But we'll see how Innsmouth goes and if people want to see Cthulhu too.
Joe Harlow? I'll have to see if there's any photos of that online. That sounds great.
If you go to his website, I think it's Joel Harlow Designs.
Okay.
You can see his Innsmouth creatures, and they're pretty spectacular.
I think Todd's a fan. Todd on the message board says, what's it like being amazing and having super fans like me stalking your every project?
It keeps me from having to quit and go get a day job, so I appreciate
it. Yeah, good point.
That's how it is.
Josh, a quick question. In the Pickman's Model series, there's an actor who I assume is playing Pickman that you seem to use a whole bunch of other work.
That is Bob Barber. Bob Barber is my star.
He is creepy.
Is awesome. You know, he's not a model. He's not an actor. He worked in shipping and receiving at the university where my dad worked. And he was a cage fight enthusiast. He loved the fights. And so one night he invited my dad, who was ostensibly his boss, if he wanted to go see these cage fights. And I got invited along. And I'm sitting there having a good time, but I keep looking over at Bob thinking, this guy's got the greatest face I have ever seen. And so I asked him on our way out if he might be willing to pose for a photograph, and he didn't want to at first. He was like, with this face, no way. But I kind of convinced him to try it out, and he loved it. And he's come back more than anybody else over and over again to be abused by me.
I guess I should ask Todd Coyne. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Todd. Says Josh knows me, by the way. So it's that Todd. Guys, you want to jump in with any questions? I don't want to hog all the questions.
Well, how do you handle prints of your work? I mean, is it done in a special kind of, archival paper? I mean, do you make an unlimited number of print, not unlimited, but indeterminate number of prints to sell, or is it numbered, or what?
You know, the photography medium is a bit different than painting, because every print is, in a sense, an original. And so you have to control it by size and number. Most of my fans aren't art collectors. I'm a horror man. And so I have a baseline print that's inexpensive, that's signed on the best paper that is made, that I ship out, several every week. But then they get bigger and a smaller number, bigger and bigger, to where the biggest ones are, like the size of a small billboard, and there's only 3 of them. So those are like the giant display models. But most bands can buy the exact same thing on the same paper at an 8.5 by 11 for like $30. And so that's mostly what I sell.
Do you print on demand, or do you print a certain number?
I print on demand, but I put a limit before I make the first one. So I'll say there's only going to be 5 of these, and then if you want one, let me know, and I just print them as they come in. So,
that brings up an interesting question for me. Is donating to the Kickstarter, becoming a part of the project in that way, is that the only way to get a print of this?
That's the only way to get almost everything except for the final image. So I'll still be selling like the small prints and the medium-sized prints of that after the fact. But the really big ones and all the specialty items and the weird portraits we're doing on the side, those will probably be for the Kickstarter only.
Gotcha.
That's just to make sure people really do get involved, if you know what I mean. Once it's done, the photograph is what we all got here together to do, and that's what will be available.
Yeah, Rick, I'm sorry, did you have a question? Was that you?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. You got about, 14 days left on it?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
We're about halfway there, and we're about halfway through the project. I'm just hoping that I can find enough Lovecraft people to pull us over the finish line.
Well, personally, I'd really love to see it succeed, because not only for the sake of this current project, but I'd love to see you do another one in the future.
Yeah, me too. It's fun. I love Lovecraft imagery. There's such an ambience to his stories that it's a tricky challenge trying to recreate it with just a picture.
Actually, Josh, just so you know, I already have an idea I want to pitch to you. But
go for it, man.
We'll talk later.
For some reason, I think this involves Herbert West.
No. Much more subtle. If I know anything about being subtle, right?
Well, that means it involves Stuart Hartwell.
No, just relax.
We're all going to guess Pete for the next half hour. What is he?
And that'll be fine. All right, so I'll put it out there. The Wedding of Asneth Waite.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
That would be pretty great.
Just do the wedding and the reception.
I was a wedding photographer for years. That's a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, so you imagine that wedding party and the reception. Folks from Innsmouth, folks from Miskatonic, Kingsport. You can bring.
I just want to do the wedding album of all the formals of people getting together for their pictures. That would be
exactly. Yeah, it works, right?
Yeah, actually, I love that idea.
There you go. And you could do like little, inscription, little, what are they called? Really, really short stories on the sides of the pictures. Yeah.
That'd be so funny.
And it could be a nice little. You could do it as a wedding album.
I'd love to do it with the white leather and the little oval picture.
Yeah, exactly. See, you're working with me here. This is.
Oh yeah. Right? It would be so fun. We did a project last year. It's not Lovecraft based, but I like the idea of taking monsters and putting them into very bland, generic photographs.
Right.
Palm pictures with a teenage Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman, and we did it straight like it's a real prom picture. Dracula has braces, Frankenstein has a mullet and a blue tuxedo, the Wolfman's date has one eyebrow, and we're going to do another one where it's the devil's mugshot, like he's been arrested on cops. But it would be so funny to do a wedding album with nothing but Lovecraft monsters in it, and just make it look like a real wedding album. It's very bland, except inside, instead of, people, it'd be nothing but monsters. Toasting, doing the first dance, it would be hilarious.
The best part would be the photo where you have like the 2 hands with the rings.
That would be awesome. Oh my gosh.
It'd be actually about.
Good idea.
It'd be another cool idea, Pete, is Devil's Reef photograph of that moment. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
one of your emails to me, you alluded to something in passing about how when you do projects like this, when you get there for the day to take the picture, which is probably a very simplistic way of saying it, but you mentioned how focused you are. What are kind of some of the things that you do? You got Doug Jones on the set. The set's built. You know, you're ready to go. What's going through your mind? And what do you do?
When there's a large crew and a lot of actors, my attention's being pulled in a lot of directions. I have to say yes to this, no to that, a little bit more gray over there. That's happening all along while I'm trying to light the set. And that's really, kind of in my mind at that point the most important thing. Everything else is being prepped and I have assistance for, but I like to just really start to focus on where everyone has to stand. And it's not just standing there, like what is their gesture down to the smallest detail. And then their job is to try and do that for me when the time comes. And I have to keep an eye on 20 people. And I don't know, it's a very, very focused exercise to try and get the lights and the performance and everything to interact just long enough to get the picture. And I know it's over in a 60th of a second, but you're just trying to get it right for a moment. In film, things are moving. And I know that's hard, but it allows for a lot of allowances in composition and nuance. And when you have a photograph, you only have one chance to get every single thing perfectly positioned, perfectly lit, and just right, because the eye will have a chance to sit there and look at that picture and soak it up, linger over the details. And so I'm trying my best to make sure that every single inch of the frame has been considered, thought out, and brought to its very best possible looking, climactic moment before it's all over. And so yeah, it's a weird focus. And as much as I get help on the makeup effects now, and I can have carpenters come in and help me get the walls up right, it's still just me when it comes time to put the lights up and push the button.
Right.
I have a question about one of your existing pictures. The one where they're shooting the zombie through the head with the shotgun or rifle, whatever it was. How did you, since it's all practical effects, no Photoshop, how did you do the exit wound with all the stuff coming out of it?
In that particular shot, there are augmentations, and I'll tell you where they are. That shot, I spent a large portion of my budget having a full-length zombie made where the head is being blown apart, and you can see the back of the head spilling out like that. There was a snowstorm. That prop showed up the day after the shoot.
Oh.
So it was heartbreaking. Everything was there on set, but my main prop didn't show up. And so what I had my friend Bob Barber do was get into the position of where that zombie was going to be placed, and we took a photograph of him with the gun aimed at his face, and then we had Bob leave, and then my star, Michael Baldwin, shot the gun, which was loaded with all sorts of blanks and flash paper, to get the blast on camera. And then the next day, what I did is I put the gun onto a stand so it would not move. The camera was not moved itself. The prop finally showed up. We positioned it right where Bob's head had been, exactly, and then we shot the gun through the prop head. And so I used Bob's body up to the neck, and then the rest was the prop head with the gunfire going through it.
So it really wasn't augmented in any kind of significant way. You took different live elements and put them together.
Yeah, there's nothing created digitally, but I was forced, unfortunately, to sort of compromise my approach to get it, to still have it, because I didn't want to give up the shot in the head. It was the nucleus of the photograph. And then the other detail that we tried to put on set at the same time was my niece, who's like 3 years old, and she was supposed to be in the frame, and she was there. But once the gunfire started going off, it was clear that there was no way she was going to get that close to the gun. And so I said, well, we already have to redo the zombie. We'll just bring her back tomorrow, too. And so literally we shot her the second day also in the exact same position. And when she's looking up at that terrified look in her face, she's looking at her dad, who's telling her, no, wait, wait. Wait, and she's like, what? And then I fired it, and then he swooped her up, and it was over.
It looks so great.
I had a feeling you would ask about the zombie picture, Sean.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Do you like zombies?
I'm the zombie professor, man.
He's kind of an expert. So.
His book will tell you that.
Okay, so I've got a good audience question from Jeff, leading from what Sean just asked you. Jeff says, a few times now Josh made a point to say he wants a photo to be non-photoshopped. Could he comment on why he prefers something that's not digitally altered? So,
there's two reasons. One is just aesthetics. It looks better to me when you photograph it real. It might be hard to tell on your computer screen or even in a small print, but because the print is so big, you can see the subtlety of how the shadows are real and interacting with the textures of the floor and the wall. You can see that the focus slowly falls back away from the actual main figure of the photograph. It just looks eerily real, and you can't figure out how it's done, and then you have to tell them, no, it's because we really did do it for real. It looks better. But on the other hand, it's a lot more fun to do it that way. I don't want to just comp it together. And when you do comp things together in Photoshop, typically you have to shoot everything in focus. You just do it that way. So when you put it all together, it has a shallowness to it. It looks plastic. And so by doing it the long, hard way, I get a sense of depth that I can't capture otherwise. And, it's fun. I want to shoot the gun. I want to spray the blood. I want the monster to be sitting in a chair waiting for his moment to get in front of my camera. It's so much more enjoyable that way.
In the early days of heavily CGI'd movies, a small percentage of people would be coming out of the film with just terrible headaches. And what they figured out was that the unconscious mind, for some people, can recognize when the shadows aren't exactly right, when things are out of proportion, and it hurts. 2 to 3 hours of looking at a heavily CGI'd movie where the shadow is in the wrong place, or it's a form of motion sickness.
that's interesting. I had not heard that. That's interesting.
I think Roger Ebert talked about it a while on one episode of his show, where he got sick, and they figured out what it was. It was heavy CGI, very early on, where perspective and light and shadow was not as well programmed as it is now.
Yeah.
And I think there's a similarity here.
There are certain genres where CGI thrives, like fantasy or sci-fi, but there are other genres like action or horror where if the audience doesn't feel that immediacy, that reality, you're mentally off the hook and you're not as invested in what's going to happen to the person on screen. It doesn't matter how good the CGI monster is, your subconscious mind, at the very least, no matter how old you are, can pick up on that level of artificiality.
Right.
So with horror, I really think I'm shortchanging the scare if I try to do it digitally. Like the last Indiana Jones movie, I couldn't believe that last part where you have the big chase scene through the jungle, that it was all digital and green screen. And it took me totally out of it. Like, seriously? Like, you should have made this like the biggest set piece ever for real. You're Spielberg. Why did you do this all fake? And I was off the hook. It didn't make me concerned for Indiana Jones at all.
Yeah, the funny, my son and I we just watched Avengers 2 on Thursday, and we commented on it afterwards that there's like 8-9 minutes of CGI artistry when they're doing the credits. 8-9 minutes are just people's names rolling by who did CGI.
Yeah.
It just, I thought this was supposed to cost less and limit the number of people who work on it, and apparently that's not the case anymore.
Well, not at that level. You need an army of digital guys to make a movie like that.
But also, there's kind of the auteur theory, I think, in place here. It's like you, Joshua, set up this photograph, got everything together, took the photograph. There was no other. I mean, the people in it, everybody had a hand creatively in a way, but this is your creation. And you don't have an army or even one other digital person really working with you. So it's like I'm getting a real piece of your work here.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you get an autographed book. Wow, the author has handled this particular book, and I feel like when you do the real life way that you do it, non-digital, I just think it gives it that much more in that auteur kind of way.
Sean, I appreciate that. And there is a tendency with large-scale photographers like the Annie Leibovitzes and Gregory Crewdsons of the world. They have a crew. Gregory Crewdson doesn't touch his camera. He has a camera operator that does that part for him. He has Hollywood technicians that light his photograph for him. And he becomes more of an art director. I mean, it's his vision. He's in charge of every detail, but he's not doing the work himself anymore. He's directing other technicians. And so as much as possible, I still try to do everything myself. And if I have someone like Kozar, who is now instrumental because I cannot do effects like he can, he still lets me oversee every detail that I need. I show him what I want. He shows me, he's like this, he's like, yes, do that. And then, bless him, because he is such a good artist, he makes it better. I was like, yeah, like that, except you're in, dude. And so I just try to find people that are willing to, follow my direction to the smallest letter and then still have enough input and talent to say, but like this, and make it even better than I could have done by myself. But I can't trust anyone to write it for me. I have to be the guy in charge, or it's not a Joshua Hoffine photograph anymore.
And there is so much stuff from that photograph that you're giving away on the Kickstarter, and my readers and viewers know I don't push a lot of Kickstarters, but I really encourage people to go to yours and try and make it happen. I've got a link on the website, the latest post, or of course you can Google it. You Google Joshua Hoffine and Innsmouth, I'm sure would take you, and Kickstarter would take you right to it, I'm sure.
Thanks, Mike.
I want to ask you more about a few of your previous projects that I just found really, really interesting. But first, before I forget, I want to ask you. You got such a love of this, so I want to ask, what are some of your favorite horror movies? What started that love of this?
My parents watched scary movies when I was growing up, so it was quite normal in my household. I watched every scary movie I could, but this is really what it boils down to. Phantasm. I would go over to my best friend's house when I was in grade school, and we would watch scary movies every Friday night. We would sleep on the floor in sleeping bags and watch the Friday night scary movie. Wesley fell asleep. His 16-year-old sister, Kim, who sometimes babysat me, was on the couch in a sleeping bag, and I kind of had a crush on Kim, though I didn't have the words for it at that age. And she got so scared, she asked if I would come up on the couch and get in the sleeping bag and watch Phantasm with her. And so
You're like, yes, I will.
I was really scared, and it also felt really kind of good in a weird way. And I think ever since, I'm just thinking, horror's awesome. I love horror. Everything about horror just makes me happy.
And you're like, horror is how you get girls. So watch a horror movie.
Which isn't true, as it turns out. But at 8 years old, I thought I had figured something out that was very important for my future happiness.
You have a lot of kids in danger in your photos. Did that come from Poltergeist or some other horror film?
Poltergeist, I saw in the theater with my mom and my sisters. It was our favorite movie as a kid. We would play Poltergeist like it was a game. My sister would get sucked into the closet, and we would have to rescue her.
That's brilliant. That's awesome.
So I'm sure there's a lot of that there, but it boiled down to the fact that I worked from home and I had my young daughters with me every day. And I started thinking, well, what if we did this? And they would just enjoy it. They had a good time because it was almost like a large game of dress-up. And even at that age, you know that you're in on scaring somebody. They weren't the ones being scared. They knew we were working together to scare other people, and like every other child, they thought that was a great idea. And so they were really
Is one of them the model for Wolf?
My daughter Shiva was in.
Was one of them? Aha.
How old are you kids now?
My eldest is 19 and off to college. Shiva, who's in the photograph Wolf, she was 6 when we were doing those. She's 17 now and will be a senior in high school this year. Chloe, who is also in a lot of those photographs like Devil and Balloons and Candy, she starts high school this year. So they're all teenagers now.
Yeah, these are really great. I'm looking at several of them again on my other screen here. I really like I like them all, but I really like the one where one of your daughters is reflected in the closet mirror, and there's something coming out of the closet. That's a really great one.
Yeah.
And then the other one where the devil's coming out of the floor. That's great too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that photograph and Wolf. Wolf was the first one I made, and they caused a lot of controversy, and I think they did a lot to get things riled up in the beginning. It was specifically those images meant to be about child predation. My biggest fear as a parent, which is also reflected in those photographs, had everything to do with someone going after my kids. And so I made photographs that were sort of about that fear. And I made those photographs in a vacuum with no audience. They sat alone in my home for years before I put them on the internet. And when they did and they blew up, I received hundreds of hate mail letters and emails that I keep in a folder because everyone thought I was a monster. All they said when they first came out was, "This is not photoshopped. These are real kids." And so people assumed that I must be abusing them somehow, and they didn't realize that the kids were kind of participants in a way. And I had to put out a blog to show how we do it, and that the kids were enjoying themselves and having a good time before I could finally see the hate mail dry up and go away.
That must have been sort of discouraging in a way, because to have people just automatically leap, or some people I should say, leap to that kind of conclusion.
You know, if you do something like that in a movie, people give you the benefit of the doubt that you're doing professionally. Right. But if you're just a photographer with kids in your house, it just smacks of something really creepy and molestery, and a lot of people's imaginations went to the worst place right away. And it's true that that is what those photographs are about. It was not a mistaken interpretation, it's just that their reaction of horror was perhaps a little stronger than I had expected. On the plus side, I don't know if I was as disappointed as you might guess. As a horror artist, my job is to show images to people that they don't want to see. I am not my audience's friend, you know? In a sense, if I'm really trying my best on some of the hardcore ones, I'm here to get you. And so their negative reaction, their emotionally volatile reaction was, in a weird way, a good review. I had done it.
That's extremely interesting to me. That is your reaction. That's great. Can you expand on that a little bit? I mean, the audience is not your friend. What is it that you want to say with these various pictures? What are you going for, if you know what I mean?
Well, it's gotten to the point where it's almost project by project, like what is the secondary meaning? And not every photograph has a secondary meaning, but oftentimes I try to make sure that they work on two levels, you know, literally and then subtextually. I did a photograph called Robot with my friend Bob, and we built a 6-foot-tall robot, and the robot hands end in these giant syringes. And you can see these giant track marks on Bob's arms as he's sort of being cradled by this robot. And so the metaphor subtly being both about addiction, because the robot's almost like this giant monkey on his back, but also in a little way our dependence on technology. And so I was hitting like the robot angle, the dependency on technology angle, and addiction in general. And so for me, I saw it in 3 different ways, and it satisfied me as an artist that it wasn't just an illustration, but in a weird way, kind of an editorial at the same time. And so with each project, I try to make sure that I understand on some level what it is I'm trying to say underneath the monster or the gore. And I think horror is inherently metaphorical. I think the monster is always a metaphor. Horror talks about the chaos that can affect you. You want security in your life. The monster represents insecurity, your health, your mortality, your job security. Everything comes down to you hoping that you're going to be all right tomorrow. And the monster is that face of chaos that comes in and tears your life apart. And if you can understand that the photograph and the monster is a metaphor, it gives me a better idea of how I'm supposed to photograph it then.
How did the monster prom pictures come about?
You know, I got published in Europe quite a bit for a few months. And so the National Opera House of Paris started licensing my work. I got flown over to do some band photos in Ireland. And Sony in UK contacted me to see if I would do a commission highlighting some new camera that they were putting out. And the cool thing was they would let me do whatever I wanted.
Oh, wow.
So it's
That is a dangerous thing to say to Josh. Yeah.
It was. And so I started pitching idea after idea, and they were just sort of like, no, I don't think we can do that. It's like, the head will explode. No, 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 Josh, we can't do that. And so I realized that they kind of wanted something that was a bit more user-friendly. And so I pitched the idea of, what if we do monster prom? And I'll do these monster photographs that look like real prom photos. And I like the idea that, talking about metaphor, you know, the teenage monster is a metaphor for how awkward you are as a teenager. Your sprouting hair, your acne, you're terrified of girls. Everything about you is at its worst in those years. And that's why so many teenagers identify with horror films. That's why they identify with monsters. And you may think I'm talking about old movies like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, but think about today, Carrie, Twilight movies, Scream. Scream might as well be called I Was a Teenage Slasher Killer. And so I thought, well, this is still a relevant metaphor. I kind of want to take a humorous approach to it, but I wanted to comment in my mind, you know, how much monsters represent adolescent awkwardness in so many movies. And so that was my stab at the teenage monster movie genre.
Yeah, they're great.
Let me.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete. Please.
You've got this one. I guess it's called Balloons.
Oh yeah.
With the clown behind the sheet and the little girl. You know, at first blush, you think that this is, oh, the clown is scaring the little girl. Except the little girl has no reaction. You don't even see her face. She's standing there intrigued.
Yeah. All she sees are the balloons.
Right. But this is not. This is not
how dangerous that is.
Right. But it's not an attempt to scare the child. It is clearly an attempt to scare the adult.
Yeah, that's a hell of a metaphor.
It is looking at this and realizing that I have not trained my child to be afraid enough.
You know, you look at another photograph of mine called Candy, which is sort of a Hansel and Gretel image. It's a matching sister piece to Balloons. They have the same composition. It's the same little girl. And in both instances, she's seeing what she wants to see, the balloons or the candy,
right,
and not noticing the danger right behind it. And if you think about all the temptations you have to go through in life, it's not that dissimilar to what we all experience. Sometimes you want to pursue that girl in the office even though she's married. Sometimes you want to try cocaine, even though your parents told you that it would ruin your life. Sometimes you want to try these things and you're sort of oblivious to how dangerous it really is.
Sometimes I think I should smoke crystal meth, but, you know.
Or anything. You know, just sometimes what we desire is fraught with dangers that we're willfully oblivious to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kids, you know, I've got a boy that's about to turn 13, you know, and they don't know the things out there to be afraid of, you know, and that's what, when Pete said that, that's how it spoke to me.
Yeah.
You know, also, like Hansel and Gretel, there's a tradition in fairy tales, or even horror films, to be cautionary stories. You know, Little Red Riding Hood, do not stray from the path. You know,
Friday the 13th is all about not having sex, right?
Yeah, you know, the dangers of adolescent sex. So there's a certain cautionary aspect to some horror and some scary fairy tales that fuse nicely with trying to use children in the photographs, because you could touch on that aspect of it.
I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have a couple more audience questions. This one's more of a comment. Don says, it's a she, loved Josh's photo of the girl coming down the stairs with the monster underneath. I have 4 of his photos and pledged for Innsmouth at the Demon Treasure level. Very excited. So.
Thank you, Don.
And Tom wants to know, is the gas mask child based off of Doctor Who?
No, I didn't even know about Doctor Who. Someone showed me that afterwards.
Oh, that's interesting.
That project came out weird. It was originally going to be a commission job from this rapper that hired me to do some stuff on his album. and he said, "Will you do a photograph with a gas mask?" And I didn't want to put a gas mask on some hot chick. I think that's what he was expecting. He wanted some deviant art, cliched gas mask, pinup photo. And instead I put on a little kid with a monster head and that little doll. And that's what I love, because the doll had a gas mask on it too. And it became more about ugliness than science fiction or trying to be apocalyptically sexy or whatever it was he wanted. He did not like the photo, and he did not use it, so I kept it. I put it online. It sold like crazy, and I started getting people go, "Did you see this in Doctor Who?" Like, total accident. I had no idea that it was, kind of in the same area.
Kenneth wants to know, is there any horror boundary you might not tread, and great pictures?
I like to keep things sort of in a world of, I don't know, icons and archetypes, if not outright fantasy. When I did Jack the Ripper, there was a project, they were doing serial killers. And I could do any serial killer that I wanted, but I didn't want to touch upon anything that was too real, any real life horror, anything that had real living victims. I just thought serial killer worship was in bad taste to begin with. But Jack the Ripper is almost like a slasher figure. He's an icon that's so far removed that we think of him in an abstract way. And I got really interested the more I thought about Jack the Ripper, because we don't know who he was. That also means we don't know what he looks like. But we all know what Jack the Ripper looks like. We all agree communally that he is an aristocratic killer, a white-gloved, top-hatted, wealthy killer preying on the poor. And so I saw a little bit of class struggle in the Jack the Ripper scenario and got excited to in my mind, approach it from that direction. Even though it's just a gaudy gore piece in most people's eyes, I saw it as an abuse of power over powerlessness.
What was just curious, what was the rapper looking for from you? You said he didn't like that particular one. What was he wanting?
I think he wanted some girl in a bikini with a gas mask and a machine gun in her hand, or something goofy like that.
I think that's been done, yeah.
It's important. It's important because hot chicks have a right to clean air in the apocalypse. Let's not rush to judgment.
I hear you, Sean. And maybe I did make a mistake there.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Guys, do any of you have any more questions for Josh? No.
All right.
Really appreciate you being on the show, Josh.
Again, Mike, this is fun. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
I encourage everybody to watch. Please go make this Kickstarter happen. I think it's pretty cool. So, again, you can just find the link from my website or Google. Best thing to do, like I said, is Google Joshua's name and Innsmouth Kickstarter. I'm sure it'll take you right to it. So
you'll find it.
So anyway, thank you, Josh. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So,
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
He's a hell of a nice guy.
It's always the nice guys who do the really nasty stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. No, I'm kidding. To the audience, we're giving away 3 books in a little while. So, so Sean, Dead Town. Yeah, let me put you on the screen here. Go ahead and hold that up. There you go. Dead Town Abbey.
That's one of my new ones, and the other one is Reviva Las Vegas, a zombie book that doesn't have any Lovecraftian stuff in it, but still cool. But this is my Lovecraftian one.
Okay, so you said you'd signed the 2 books that we give away, so
yeah,
that's cool. So talk about Dead Town Abbey, not just the plot, but I'm assuming you got the idea. I guess my first question is, I'm assuming you got the idea from watching the show.
Well, I did, and you don't have to know anything about the show to read the book. It's got a couple little Easter eggs in there and stuff, but it's really just set in that world. But what happened was that I really liked the show, and I really liked the idea of the class struggle, and that made me think, well, what if the class struggle weren't between, the downstairs lower class and the upstairs higher class, but what if it was with supernatural creatures trying to become accepted in everyday Edwardian England? Would they be what kind of prejudices would they face, and that sort of thing. And but more than that too is I wanted to have this idea that the old religion that allowed for monsters and werewolves and vampires and things, and in this book Yog-Sothoth and Cthulhu and the rest, was the upper class was trying to get away from that. So they started bringing aboard this Christism, as I call it in the book. So it's also about the differences with the rich trying to distance themselves via religion. And so I got to use lots of great Lovecraftian stuff for the old beliefs of the lower classes. And that's really where it started. And I just wanted to put it in that world where everyone still had to be really proper, but you've got a person who has an artificial leg made of silver who is sort of what you would call kind of a Van Helsing-ish sort of character. Not Van Helsing, but and when he sees the chance to use the silver, he uses it, and that's why he has that. And this whole world is built around not just the Edwardian economics or whatever, and the upstairs-downstairs conflict, but also everybody's on the watch all the time for supernaturals. But not shiny vampires or anything.
I'm not real knowledgeable with that era, but from what I read of your book, it seems like you are.
Yes, well, actually, the show is very entertaining, and apparently the historical tidbits in the show are they're what was the word for it? Authentic. And then when I went and write the book, there's a scene where I have these two downstairs people discussing something, and one of them is lighting a cigarette for the other one. And I didn't want it to be a match, I wanted it to be a lighter. So I went and researched what kind of lighters did they have back then, what, it's like 1912 when the story starts. What kind of lighters do they have, what is it called, who would have it, would a lower class person have it, and just all those, I put a lot of research into the historical details, because then it could be made really insane and funny when you have these straight historical details, and then you have, well, how do we deal with Cthulhu? It's not steampunk because it doesn't have that kind of mechanicals and things like that, but it's sort of like that in that you have the two mashed together. You've got the 1912 society where the heir to the fortune has just been killed on the Titanic, and they think it was because of a zombie infestation, and they had to scuttle the ship, and there was a lot of fun things I could do with it. And when I was writing this book, this is my literary novel I wrote a few years back called Darwin's Dreams. This kind of became the model in my research for the Dead Town Abbey book. Now, this book isn't funny, but I made sure that there were no words in it that the OED didn't show being used only during Darwin's time. So I wanted to refer to a cookbook, so I found that there was in America there was a cookery book, so I had to do that, and it was a lot of fun doing the research for that. But it got me started on putting together the plot and characters that I wanted in with the historical verisimilitude.
Yeah, so with this research thing, you've got a lot in common with Pete and Rick.
Yeah, well, I love being put in that company. The Reanimator stuff, man. Oh yeah, it's great. I am also.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, no problem. No. I was just going to say that doing the research part of it, and then I tried to think of what conflicts could I set up between the people, not involving any of the supernatural or Lovecraftian creatures, that would make it that much more difficult for them to fight, the outside horrific influences. And I realized that I'm doing something that's been done in horror writing and film since the beginning. In most zombie movies, right? Yes, the zombies are a threat, but it's the people in the house with you that are the real threat. because someone's going to snap and open a door or kill everybody or whatever. So I had a lot of fun doing that, and there's a lot of Easter eggs in it. I have it take place at a place called Monroeville Hall. Dawn of the Dead fans will know Monroeville Mall. That was the mall that was in there, and a lot of kind of fun things. If you're a horror fan, there are a million little things in this that you'll really enjoy.
I really enjoyed the conclusion where we learned what would happen if Cthulhu battled something. I don't want to say what it was.
Yes. I thought that was like if you. Well, Rick and I have to now speak in code here. But there's a part where Cthulhu encounters another kind of supernatural creature, and the way it happens makes Cthulhu even stronger. So there has to be a way to fight this, and that was. I'm glad you liked that. It was really fun. And everybody loves Cthulhu, you know.
So
No.
this will look good on my shelf next to Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters.
What?
This
What,
will look
Pete?
good on the shelf next to Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters.
Yeah, right. In a way, yeah. But I hesitate to call it a real mashup because those take like the exact plots and then put zombies or sea monsters. I liked Android Karenina. That was a good one. But this is more taking the world more than taking the actual plot. But people that enjoyed those books would also enjoy this, as would anyone who has $15 would enjoy this book.
Well, and it's executed very well. I mean, a lot of people have ideas. Let's mash this or that or whatever, but it's executed very, very well. That's a good book.
Thanks.
So.
Thanks. I tried to make it the kind of thing that I myself would want to read. And as you know, Mike, I have really just become deeply involved in the Lovecraftian community, and I really love the people in it. And it's great because you can take these absolutely mind-shattering horrors, right, and make them a topic of conversation that you can say, well, what would happen if this? And it's not really silly because we're talking about the human reaction to it. And so when I was doing this, I was thinking of the other people that I've met, like you and Joe, in the Lovecraftian and Pete, in the Lovecraftian community.
He's having
And
computer problems. That's why he left. But go ahead. He'll be back, I think.
oh, okay. But with the zombie book, with the Reviva Las Vegas that I wrote, I took just the barest idea. And I'm really sick of reading oh my gosh, is it the Chinese flu? What is it? We don't know what it's happening, and now everybody's turning into monsters, and now we'll hide ourselves in a house. When I wrote my zombie book, the Reviva Las Vegas, I took the idea of it being 8 years after the zombies have basically conquered the earth, and the only safe city in America left is Las Vegas. And I live in Las Vegas, and it's walled off, basically the Strip and the downtown. And this poker player who's been making his living, playing for food or sex or whatever around the Southwest, gets an invite to come to Las Vegas to play a really big game. And if he wins, he gets to come live in the zombie-free city. And if he loses, very bad things will happen to him. But so that was my main starting point with the Reviva Las Vegas. Well, with Deadtown Abbey, as I wrote it, I mean, I had a general outline of what I wanted to do, but as I wrote it, I kept finding things that made me myself crack up. I have a little creature in this who's basically Brown Jenkins, but for some reason I named him John Jenkins in this, and he is a true heir to the property. But because he is this little rat-faced, human-faced rat creature, a lot of insane and hilarity ensues. But I did a lot of things like that, and I just thought of that while I was writing. I'm like, oh, now I have to do something with this because it's a take on the Dreams of the Witch House, and then it's its own insane thing. And but I say insane, but it'll make sense and it's all amusing. Also, as the book continues, the footnotes get more and more unhinged, and I had a lot of fun with that.
You wrote this what, a couple years ago? Am I remembering that
I wrote
right?
in 2013, over the summer of 2013.
And when did you get involved with the Lovecraftian community? Wasn't it right before that, or
It
have you
was.
been?
Well, it was earlier that year that I really got involved with the people. I had
Hmm.
gone crazy with Lovecraft, reading Lovecraft, and then
Right,
all these
right,
books that branch off of it, you know. Um,
right.
but then, and then I thought, hey, I'd like to join this group. Not as just an appreciator of it, but also as a writer of it. And I thought there's enough stuff that's very dark, and I'd love reading that stuff. But what if we had something that was a little scary, a lot creepy, but also funny, and not in a slapstick way, but like funny deep down because you know these characters we're talking about, and I'm talking about the Lovecraftian characters, not the Downton Abbey people.
Right.
And I mean, you know vampires and you know werewolves and things like that, and you can just endlessly riff on it. It's kind of like Joe with the King in Yellow, um, where there's such small hints given in the four stories, right, or five
Right.
stories, and I mean, he spins tales, and other people spin these tales out of these. There's suggestions, and it's exciting because I believe, while you're doing it, you're exploring what's possible, even as you're writing it. You're discovering it. I talk a lot about formal systems, and at the Cthulhu Con last weekend, I talked about formal systems as far as checkers and chess. And
Hmm.
checkers to me is like a zombie system. We know the rules, aim for the head, and they are undead, and this sort of thing. But and that's really pretty simple, right? In fact, they've
Right.
solved checkers. But in chess, there's something like 10 to the 120th power moves, more than there are atoms in the universe. And that, to me, is more like the Lovecraftian sort of well that we can go to. It seems inexhaustible. It just depends on the people's imagination, and I really like that.
Yeah, I do too. That's interesting.
In your book, you mentioned something called Haster's Gate.
Yeah.
Is
Do I
that
mention it?
is that a sort of afterlife? Or
I
one of
like
the
that. Yeah,
afterlives? I was
yeah.
trying to figure out what that was exactly.
It's all right. You know what? I forgot I had that in there actually. Yeah, but I remember now. It's these oaths that people make. These epithets are like for Yog's sake and by what did I say about? I forget what I said about Haster's Gate, but it's like all the way to Haster's Gate or something like that. And
Yeah.
because the religion is this old one's religion, and the sort of more pretentious rich people look down on it because that isn't Christism, where we worship the Jesus. It's but really the Earl of the house and everything, he keeps saying these old religion things and really making his wife angry. He goes, no, we believe in Christish things now. And it was another level that I really got to have fun with. Yeah, the By Haster's Gate was
You
definitely.
had some reference to the lower class people kind of believe that they'll all end up when they die in Azathoth.
Yeah. When we're reunited with the blind idiot god,
Mhm.
these kinds of things. And what I like is that I don't mean to offend any sensibilities, but it's no more or less ridiculous or nonsensical than modern religious views. Now we all know it's fiction here, but in the book it's not fiction, right? It's a fiction book, but in it it's a real religion,
Right.
and sort of the folk religion. And so yeah, it's we'll all be reunited as Azathoth consumes us, those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, it was also it said we'll either end up. At one point, some character says we'll either end up in Azathoth, says the center of chaos, or worse yet, we'll go to Haster's Gate.
Yes, that's right. And I liked. Well, thanks for remembering that, and thanks for reading the book too. But is that I remembered that is that I like to allude to these things and then don't say anything more about them.
Okay.
So it leaves everything in the mind of the reader like, oh wow, what would be worse than getting consumed by Azathoth?
I was thinking, I mean, my thought was that this is like Heaven's Gate, and it's the Lake of Hale, and it's worse to drown there than to be an Azathoth. But that's this.
Right? I mean, to become a gibbering, mind-shattered follower of Cthulhu, in some ways, is like the highest religious, attainment you can have in this sort of world. Although Cthulhu is the enemy in the book.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
Spoiler, yeah. Not much of one, but.
You mentioned earlier that a character wasn't Van Helsing, but you do have Van Helsing in the book.
Yes, that's right. That's not that character, but I tried to. What I did with Van Helsing in that was I didn't mention his last name for a long time. It's in these love letters between this woman who's had an affair with a vampire, and now she is having a romance with this Abraham fellow. And then only at the most ironic moment do we find out that it's Abraham Van Helsing, and who doesn't enjoy that his beloved had been taken by the vampire before. He's kind of a stickler about that.
I think he was a member of Parliament, wasn't he? As well.
Yes.
He sort of represented it was like those old conservatives who don't want gay marriage. He doesn't want.
He doesn't want your marriage with the monsters. Yeah. I mean, it would be the religious becomes political, and there's prejudice and all that stuff. It's a really great book, if I may say so myself.
Well, I was gonna say that, Rick. It seemed to me like the exact kind of book that you'd love, digging out all the Easter eggs and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you liked it. I had a lot of fun with those, and because I like Joshua. I mean, I was raised on horror movies, and I loved Phantasm. We had HBO like before anybody else on the block, and I saw Phantasm. It scared the hell out of me, and there was something about that ball going through the hallways and everything.
Yeah.
I have a good tidbit. Even before I was born, actually, I mentioned this at a talk on a Romero retrospective at Salt Lake City Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
That my mother and father went to see Night of the Living Dead in '68, and my mom was at the beginning of 1969 when it was coming around to the theaters, and she was so scared by that movie that she went into labor with me.
Oh wow!
So I have George Romero kind of is the reason that my birthday is what it is.
Well, I was going to ask if they stole a car to watch the movie, but that's an even better story.
Well,
I am never going to live that down.
No, you're
You
not.
steal one car.
What? You ruined for life, man.
And you're.
Yeah, do you know that story, Sean? He stole a car to go watch Reanimators when he was a teenager.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah.
Great! Now I can hold this against him too. This is good.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike.
To be accurate, he borrowed in quotes.
Right.
Without permission.
Yeah, his grandmother's.
Sure.
Like he ripped off some stranger's car.
Yeah, but telling it the other way has more shock value.
At least you went to see Reanimator with that. You didn't go see, something. You didn't go see Dirty Dancing. I mean, you went to see something worth stealing a car for.
The theater was full. Yeah, he had to go see Reanimators instead.
I'm curious about something. Like when Joe and I were growing up as kids, we always had some channel in New York that was all Universal horror movies and things like Plan 9 from Outer Space and whatever.
Yep, right.
Both you and Joshua mentioned Phantasm. Did that become the horror movie to watch of your generation?
I would say, yeah. I would say it wasn't meant for the 11-year-old who saw it. I don't think. But my mom and dad were really they really liked horror movies, and so horror movies were on. And Phantasm, there was something about it that was absolutely. It was so well grounded, and then it was horrifying, kind of like The Shining, in a way, right? And but Phantasm, it was just brutal and very visceral with that globe with the spike on it. And I can't who's the director on that? Don I can't remember his name, but he's the one that did John Dies at the End. And I like to think of John Dies at the End as maybe this next generation's Phantasm, because it was done so well, and it's otherworldly and scary, but also grounded. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's quite good.
Yeah.
Don Coscarelli also did Bubba Hotep.
He did what?
Bubba Hotep.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I love that movie. Oh, that's a great movie.
That I think that's the only one I've seen of his movies, but I really loved it.
I was with Permuted Press as my publisher. I sent them Deadtown Abbey, and they said, "Oh, we love it. Let's have 10 books from you." And I'm like, "Wow, this is great. This is the Holy Grail. This is what every writer wants." And then they proceeded to cancel all print editions, and then they started just dropping. It was really a horrible experience. But one of the reasons I was so excited about going with Permuted Press is that John Dies at the End, they were the original publishers.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And so let's just say they're not quite the same publisher. I live in Vegas, like I said. I need us to set an over-under on how many cigarettes Joe is going to light during the show. I think we could make a few bucks.
Well,
I chain smoke.
If you're going to do it, go for it.
I got a question.
I often wonder if people are noticing what we're doing in these little corners when the main person is talking. Now I know.
Oh God, I hope they don't.
Quietly.
Tom on the message board wants to know, Sean, where did you get that badass Cthulhu ring?
Oh, yes. It's right there. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, this was a custom. Huh?
That is blue eyes.
Yes, you get to pick the color eyes. The Dalai Lama actually gave this to me, and no, I got this was for sale on Etsy, and they make them custom. If you go on Etsy and look for Cthulhu ring, they make a lot of different kind of little creatures and skulls and things like that, and they had them in. I mean, you get it from brass to silver, but I got the stainless steel. And I really love it. So it's on Etsy, and I really like to wear it, especially when I'm around people who don't really know anything about me. And I meet them and I shake hands or whatever, and they see this big monster creature thing on my ring, and it's like, okay, gonna take a step back, and between the beard and the monster ring, and I'm wearing my Cthulhu Con T-shirt, I try to be a walking ad for the community and for HP, good old HP.
You going to Necronomicon?
Did I do what?
Are you going to Necronomicon, the convention in August?
Okay, here's the thing. Do you guys know Matt Wiseman? 7 feet tall. He's got a curly mustache. Awesome guy. I mean, he does Shoggoth.net, and it looks like...
The name rings a bell, but no, I don't think I do.
Yeah, sure. But anyway, he and I were talking last night, and I think he's going to sponsor me traveling there, and I'm going to do like a week's worth of blog posts and things like that. And Jason Brock and I are talking about whether I can get in there and get a comp ticket. It's like $400, And so if those things come to pass, I really want to go anyway. But I've put this big marketing push behind the new books, not only because they just came out, but because my former employer saw fit to release me to the winds. So I've had lots of time.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, thanks. But that's what the Patreon is. So I have the Patreon thing. Help me. I wish I wasn't so fat. Then I could say I was a starving artist. But I'm making. I'm really trying to make the most out of the social media and everything. Not only about the books, but about other people's books. About the broadcasts we do here. Everything that Joe does, I try to spread around, because we met. He probably doesn't remember, but we met last year, and he was just the nicest guy to me. And it was just, and I appreciate that a lot. So, also, I love your stuff, you know. But yeah, that's what I'm doing with the money things. It's not just so I can, you know, get a deluxe apartment in the sky. It's just trying to get my books out there and try to be able to support myself with this.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. And again, I'm sorry to hear about getting laid off or whatever happened.
Oh, thanks.
I love.
You had to wear pants to work. Who knew?
Yeah, yeah. It was a faux pas, huh?
It was just, I wasn't thinking.
I love my viewers because they do little things like this all the time. David Burst just posted a link to that ring on Etsy. So thanks,
Excellent.
David.
It's great. Everybody should get them, and you get to pick the eye color.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But there are those of us who do not like Cthulhu.
Well, he's not very nice, for one thing.
Well, no, I don't do this because I like him. I do this because I'm scared of him. I'm hoping to wave this and go, eat me first, save my suffering.
What,
Joe?
Jeff?
That's why I don't like him, because right since day one, the image wasn't very bothersome. You know, there are all those classic monsters that inspire fear, but as much as I enjoyed the story, just the image of Cthulhu itself just never pushed my button.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, when I saw Lovecraft's drawing, how he saw Cthulhu, I thought, man, that's a fat man with a squid face sitting on the toilet.
I mean,
What it looks like.
That's what it looks like. Yep. I find actually the most interesting image of Lovecraft's one of the most, as far as his creatures or whatever, to think about. Azathoth is really cool, but I really love the residents of Innsmouth, because as Joshua was saying, right, you can start off where they're basically kind of flat fish faces, right, and then he couldn't use that, so he went to the anglerfish thing, and you can't say that either one of those isn't an evocative representation of the older residents of Innsmouth.
Yeah, you know, out of all the towns mentioned in Lovecraft's fiction, that's the one that's the most interesting to me, Innsmouth. You know, for one thing, it's right on the ocean with all the mystery that entails, and you know, I don't know why, probably can't articulate it very well, but it seems much more interesting to me than Arkham and the others, and they are interesting too. But
yeah, I mean, Arkham's cool, but Arkham I like to think of as just as a really weird college town, and then Innsmouth is where Innsmouth to me is like where the townies live, you know. And actually, I just read a new story. Actually, it's getting published in Brian Sammons and Glenn Barris in their Summer of Lovecraft, their 60s one. I just read a story at CthulhuCon called Mudmen, which is kind of in a way like Deadtown Abbey, in that I take a little bit of the ideas of the world of Mad Men, where they have this agency that's trying to adjust to the new world where you can't say cigarettes are healthy and all this stuff, and they get a new client, which is a Mr. Gilman and a Mr. Marsh from Innsmouth, looking to do a sort of city reputation rehabilitation, and I think it's really, really funny. It was taken well, and that's kind of what I like. I mean, the Innsmouth idea just seems to just give and give and give, and
yeah, plus it's so isolated. You know, I don't remember exactly from the story, but it's not just the ocean that gives it the isolation.
The salt marsh.
Yeah,
the salt marsh.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like the idea, which was very current in Lovecraft's early life, at least, was the neoteny, where they're born looking human. They're young youth, they look human, but as they get older, they look more like the fish. And then finally, when they die, they go in the ocean to live forever with Dagon. And there was an idea that apes were really just superannuated humans. That humans were just basically what young apes look like, and if we lived to be like 200, we would come out of this sort of larval human stage and become apes. And I like that. I don't know if he did it consciously, but I like that Lovecraft had that, because it adds yet another layer to it. You know, the kids are different these days. Well, they're literally different. You know.
Hmm. I got a question from Brian on the message board. Looks like he's looking at Books A Million. Says he prefers the paper edition, but if it's available at Amazon in Kindle and print.
My book?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's available. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's available in Kindle, definitely. If anybody wants an EPUB or an HTML or PDF, if you go to my website, which is right here, if you go to seanhoade.com, I've got where you can. I've got 4 buttons, and it's got like buy the paperback from me, buy the ebook from me, buy the paperback from Amazon, buy the ebook from Amazon. If they choose buy the ebook from me, they can have whatever format they want.
The other thing is, I linked to it from today's post, and the link goes directly to Brian. The link goes directly to the Kindle version, but that's just. I mean, you can go down, scroll down a little bit, and click on the paperback version. So.
Yes, but also if they buy it from. I'm sorry. If they buy it from me directly, you know, I can inscribe it for them and everything. It's all on there.
That's cool. Okay.
But I wanted. Can I say something real quick about my kind of my sort of? It's not a gimmick, but like my marketing idea.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many books out there now, and a lot of Lovecrafting books, and I think that that they're great. But I want people to buy mine, you know. So what I've done is on my website, if you go down to the books tab, you can read the first half of any of my books online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The first half of the book is there, and it's interspersed every couple of chapters with the, you know, hey, don't you want to buy me button. But you can really get a feel, is this book something that I want to read? And if you read the full half of it, I feel extremely confident that you'll want to read the rest, and that's why I put it on there. So it's not like Amazon's little sample. You can read fully half of the book.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So
Well,
it was just an idea that I had to try to set my books apart from the mass of people pushing their books out there, you know.
Well, make sure you say hi to me at Necronomicon if you get to go. So hopefully you do.
Yes, I will.
Okay, cool. I don't think I showed this at the beginning, but it arrived. This is the proof. It arrived the other day, and it looks awesome. And it's right now at right now at 313. It's gonna end up about probably 320 pages, right, Joe? Once we change a couple things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
around there. And I got your edit requests, Rick, so I'll take care of those on the introduction. So.
Thanks. I just have a question for Joe. The story, and I hope I'm getting the title right. It was the last days of summer in the year of frost. It had the one that you're saying you're doing the unpublished original.
I know the story. You're
let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Rick. You expect me to remember the titles of these things?
The Last Few Nights in a Life of Frost.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay. Sounds right.
That's the unpublished, previously unpublished version. Without giving any spoilers or anything, what was the significant difference between that and the previously published?
Occasionally, there's different types of editors out in the universe. There's those who suggest, and you know, a writer will follow the suggestions or not. And then there's occasionally editors who will, I don't know, rewrite a sentence or alter a paragraph and not inform other parties about it.
Wow.
I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with suggestions, and I welcome them, because I'm not brilliant, and, you know, I just go where the wind blows. So, yeah, be nice. And I don't have beta readers, so...
This is the director's cut.
So,
so you moved some editorial...
Sometimes people will alter my work, and I'll find out about it after the fact. And it may well be that I don't accept the alterations.
I've been there, even though
All
I'm
right, the
not
new
a
book.
writer with you, Joe, but I've been there. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right. And I can be right, and I can be very wrong. But the best example of this is when we were putting together A Blood Will Have Its Season. I wrote a story called A Night of Blood and Moon, Then Holstonwall, which is a prequel to Dr. Caligari. And it looked like a Jackson Pollock painting spread out over, I don't know, 26 pages. And the editor read it and went, whoa, no way, I don't even know if this says anything. And a couple of weeks later said, you know what? If this wasn't weird looking, if it just looked like a normal narrative, it might be something. So I was asked to turn it into a normal narrative, get rid of all the weird layout, and I did. And it needed, of course, it required a couple of transitions because it went from pure hybrid poetry to text. And it was used. And when we were doing the third collection of Portraits of Ruin, the editor said, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the readers would have enjoyed that Caligari thing in its original form. Maybe we should use that. Well, we didn't, but I used it for the new book. I finally, the original text is yours in A House of Hollow Moons. There's such a thing as authorial intent. So, if in the vetting process there's a good reason, yeah, we'll change it. And if there's not, then keep your goddamn paws off it.
Or even if it's
that's
change, I always felt the editor should force you to make it.
Occasionally, you're going to see from me, maybe once a collection, something appear that's already appeared. I haven't rewritten it. It'll be the original version that I altered for some particular reason. Again, editors want what they want. Sometimes I'll acquiesce because I'll just say, in a year from now, I'll print the original version. And that's all that is.
Right.
Yeah, I think that editors will never say that they were wrong or they made a wrong decision about your work. What it is that I was brilliant then, and now I'm so much more brilliant that I see that this is what I should do now. So really, there's a no-lose proposition.
When I'm editing and I have suggestions, which aren't typos, when I'm suggesting edits to a writer, I always tell them if you disagree with me, I want to know. I mean, I
do too.
I may look at it and not like it. I may not get it. Perhaps they can explain what I missed. Perhaps I just missed it altogether because I, wasn't with it that day. I want writers to fight for their work, not unnecessarily, And oftentimes I'm an excellent reader. Oftentimes I know what I want the writer to go back and do. I want more of this. I want less of that. That and that are repeats of something you just told me twice. It's not poetic. There's no need for any kind of repetitions. But I want writers. It's your work. Fight for it. Don't fight needlessly though, because that's not good.
My experience is most editorial changes I've had to deal with are to cut the story just because it's too long for for what the slot in the anthology page-wise is assigned to.
Actually, most times I don't want things cut. Most times I want something expanded upon in some capacities, or I mean, normally when I want something cut, it's a simpler. We'll say it's a kind of a Hemingway kind of text, and in one paragraph we decide to become Legati, and it's like, no, I don't see the narrator all of a sudden, doing this extremely purple digression. So I think we need to trim this. But I'm not looking to lose anything. I'm just looking to make the work as best. The writer is pregnant and they're about to deliver this baby, and I'm the taxi driver. I'm just looking for the most efficient route to get it to the hospital so we can deliver the baby. That's my role.
Well, since we're talking about editing and writing, a friend of mine, I won't name names, is looking for a publisher, and I had asked a publisher I know if he would look at it, and he was very nice, and he said that he would love to, but he's booked up for like the next couple of years, and asked if the person was a new writer or had some stuff published, and he gave what we've given some writing advice and publishing advice and all that out on the show before, but he said if they haven't, make sure. And I know we got a lot of writers that watch this show, and some new writers, and if you haven't been, then send your short stories out to magazines, anthologies, and kind of build up a name first, and it's going to be easier for you to get a publisher of an anthology, or pardon me, a collection. So.
Can I actually say something about that?
Yeah.
I found that.
As long as you don't say I'm wrong, that's fine.
I would never, never. No, I wanted to say about kind of getting a volume of work out there, and it's like the internet, I think, has of course made that a lot easier because there aren't really length restrictions on a lot of these eZines or other online magazines. And so you can kind of write what you want to write, and then if they find it good, it's not necessarily going to be based on length, but if they find it good, they can put it out there, and then you get it started. And that builds up the confidence to start sending out to real anthologies, like print collections. And then of course you go from there, and you can do books and things like that. One of the things with my Patreon campaign that I'm doing, it's like 12 months. And then you get 12 books. 7 of them are already finished and ready to ship out, one per month. And then the next 5 will be over the next couple of years. Like $10 to get the ebook, $25 to get the hard copy and the ebook, and then $50 is they get both of those and other rewards. But what I'm really liking to do, and of course that's going to help keep me alive. But what I'm really liking to do with that is getting the books in the hands of people that want them, and then seeing those books out in the world. And I don't have like I don't have any contract right now. I don't have a big contract or anything like that. But I'm hoping that this will be not only something to help keep me alive now, but something that will help me have a great body of work that I can then take to an agent or a big publisher or something like that. So I think that writers could do a lot worse than follow that idea.
Cool. What else was I going to say? Oh, well, first of all, we're doing another movie night next Saturday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time, which I posted about this yesterday on the website. It's called The Last Case of August T. Harrison, and it's pretty good. It's an indie film, of course, obviously, but that said, I enjoyed it. It's about an hour long, and nobody's seen it, so you can't rent it. I mean, it's going to be going on the festival circuit, the director hopes, so you can get a sneak peek of it next Saturday night, just watching like you're watching now. It will not, as usual, this is a live-only event, so after the live event's over, I can't keep the recorded version up for people to watch. So the other thing is, I am so bad about holidays. I did not realize the next Sunday was Mother's Day. So, wondering if I should skip next Sunday or not. So,
That's probably advisable.
well, it is the day before another important holiday. So,
Mike, can I just say one thing about that movie you're promoting?
yeah, yeah.
At least the main star, and I don't know if there are other actors, it says Dark Shadows connections.
Yes, and I love this guy. He's so great in this movie. But go on, yeah.
Jerry Lacey is the main star, who used to play Reverend Trask on Dark Shadows, and other roles, but that was his most famous role. And that director has used Dark Shadows actors in a lot of other movies. So I'm hoping for a lot of Dark Shadows connections when this comes out.
Played. He told me he played. The director told me also he played Humphrey Bogart's. Oh, hi, Charlie. He played Humphrey Bogart's ghost in Woody Allen's Play It Again, Sam.
Yes,
Both on Broadway and the film version.
Both the Broadway play and the movie version.
Right. Right.
That's pretty cool. Maybe we could just discuss. We could have next week just discuss movies that have mothers as the main enemy, or something like Friday the 13th, the first one, where it's actually Jason Voorhees' mother. Spoiler alert, by the way. Or Aliens. You can watch Aliens, where it's the Queen. Things like that.
Everybody knows the conclusion of the first Friday the 13th movie.
The what?
I think he didn't reveal much about the first Friday the 13th movie.
Oh yeah.
That's all over the internet. I've never seen it, but I knew it when I was looking up the series. I said, well, in the first movie, the killer is this. You also got the mother in Psycho. We all know we don't really know what's going on there, but I'm not going to say it.
We could just keep it to movies where mothers are either the victims or the killers, and books and things like that.
On this particular movie, watching it, I had the thought that a younger actor. I mean, he really lends a level of class to the film, and he's a really great actor. And I thought, say someone portraying a younger detective, even 30s or so, it's much better at his age. So
the gravitas.
Yeah, I just think he's a great actor. So. And so anyway, we're going to watch that. I guess the audience, or you guys can post on the message board about if anybody's going to be around next Sunday, or if everybody's going to be out to Mother's Day dinner or not. So I'm fine either way, but I have the feeling that it's probably best to skip it, but I'm not going to decide right now. So.
The cast has at least one other Dark Shadow actor, just looking it over.
Oh, really?
Lisa Blake Richards, I recognize her name. I think she was the only one. He was the werewolf's girlfriend on the show.
The books, the giveaway. Is that done on air? How do we do that?
No, what I do is after the show. Well, actually, I'll just say that I tell people how to enter.
Okay.
Send me an email and put Deadtown Abbey in the subject, and you send the email to Lovecraft eZine prizes @gmail.com. Lovecraft eZine prizes @gmail.com. And then after the show, I use random.org to pick however many number of prizes, 2 in this case, and then 1 with, what was Matt's book he's giving away? Cthulhu Rising? Something like that?
Something like that. He had 2 copies.
He has 2 copies?
2 copies to give away.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so we'll have 4 winners. And Sean will sign his book.
Usually with a contest featuring my book, it's like first prize would be 1 signed book, and second prize would be 2 signed books. So I prefer it this way.
All right. So we got anything else? Joe, how's House of Halloween's doing?
I don't know. It's out. I've been pushing it. I'm going to scream about it until everybody's sick of me. Because I'd like to sell some copies and be able to put out another one. So please buy it. Reviews, please. Writers need reviews.
Yep.
Sharing is caring. Small press doesn't have ad budgets, so that's why we bug you with our posts.
Also got my.
And we all know things like. And we all know things like Facebook limit the number of people who can see the posts. So every time you share, if there's a writer you like, talk about them. That will help them maybe do another book. If you don't, we might not.
I heard today, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that when a book on Amazon gets 125 reviews, regardless of whether they're good reviews or bad reviews, that they start promoting the book more, like having it show up more on "You might like to buy this." You guys know anything about that?
Yo, you told me 25.
I've been told that it's 25 reviews.
Oh.
And then the bots kick in. What they do, I don't know, but
if it's 125, that's a hell of a lot of reviews for a small press book.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. You got to be To Kill a Mockingbird or The Sun Also Rises to get 125 reviews. Small press public books are not going to get. I mean, take somebody like Laird Barron, popular, wonderful, brilliant, and he's not getting 125 reviews. He ought to be, but he's not. But
so maybe it's 25.
Yeah, I believe the number I hear most often is 25 reviews.
Ah, okay. I hang out with
I researched it and I couldn't find anything on it, but it doesn't mean it's not out there.
Well, this just could be an internet rumor. Who knows? It's just something that I've heard twice now in the Whisper stream. Is it accurate or not? I don't know, but I do know a handful of writers were, looking to garner more reviews for their work. And this isn't any tit for tat thing either, because that's the last goddamn thing any of us want. We want to. Certainly, we'd like a great review, but we're not trading. We're not going to review your book, so you review ours. I'm sorry, that's my name. I might be wrong, but I'm not going to support something that I don't like. We don't want somebody supporting us that didn't genuinely like it. We want to know in a review what you thought. Hopefully, you thought really good things, but
Well, I do know this. There's a lot of books out there that don't have even 25 reviews that if you Google them, you find them just fine. So, I have the feeling this is an internet rumor, but...
What I want are more readers like Rick, where he's like, hey, in your book you have this thing right here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you for being a close reader. That's I really appreciate that, Rick.
Thank you.
Well, as we say often on this show, Rick knows everything, and that's not us making fun of him. It's the literal truth.
That's not true. Pete probably knows. I would say I've just read Sean's book. If it was within 4 years, because this has happened to me, anything new I read I don't remember as well as, let's say, Robert E. Howard or Lovecraft, just because I read those about 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
At an early age, and it makes an impression that sticks in your mind.
Yeah. Yep. Adding those extra couple of days the way we've been doing lately is not kind.
Niels wrote on the message board earlier today that he was in a Damn, my brain is growing tired. Contest at CthulhuCon or somewhere. I don't know where he was, and he said he almost won the trivia contest. He was close, but I told him that if he'd had you and Pete on speed dial, Rick, he would have won. So probably.
Can you get the phone a friend on that?
What? Yeah, I doubt they can phone a friend.
But I say, as we've been talking about these trivia contests, I'll know everything, or at least, also when you get older, your mind goes blank.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was, we were talking about Windy City. I was on a panel, and there were some little problems in organizing that panel. And because of that, I was like carrying something I really shouldn't be carrying for the first 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, my mind went blank over Teddy London, who's C.J. Henderson's character. Because somebody was saying, well, the person who really should fight the Cthulhu is the Spider, because he has all these wild plots and all parts of New York City get destroyed. And I say, yeah, that's C.J. Henderson was essentially doing that in his own little series, which was, and then I'm going, good grief, oh yeah, with some guy, begins with a T. Like half hour later, Teddy London just flashes in your mind. I would never normally forget that.
Well, I am. Aren't you going to be in a trivia contest in Necronomicon? At Necronomicon, I mean.
I'll probably go there.
Yeah. Well, I am not going to enter any trivia contests.
You and me both, brother.
Because A, I have nowhere near the knowledge that you guys do, but secondly, I got with this. The short version is my illness has a nice brain component that fogs up my brain occasionally, and you know how with some people, like a word you use every day suddenly can't think of it.
Yeah.
Well, that happens to me like 20 times a day. My son says it's Alzheimer's, but it's not.
You know what we should do is that Joe, Mike, and I should all buy a stake in Rick in the contest, in the trivia contest,
Oh,
and he has to
absolutely.
share the prize with us.
You are from Vegas.
I know, baby. Everything you can never think normally again after living here.
Can I plug a book?
Yeah.
I do. Altus Press just came out with Tales of the Werewolf Clan by H. Warner Munn, who was a member of the original Lovecraft Circle. He wrote a series of werewolf stories, which do have some cosmic horror in it, and a little Cthulhu mythos references. I wouldn't say they're part of the Cthulhu mythos, they're more on the border of it. The first story is of interest because it's the werewolf of let me pronounce it right, Ponkert, which the plot was suggested to the author H. Warner Munn by Lovecraft.
Oh, really?
Lovecraft said, somebody should write a werewolf story from the perspective of the werewolf. And that led to that plot when it was considered a major werewolf story at the time and still is.
Can you hold that up again? Because you can see everything except the title and the author. All I see is clan.
Down a little bit, Rick.
Just one moment.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's H. Warner Munn.
That story you're talking about, is that in this book? I didn't catch that.
Yes, it's in fact it's the. If you wanted to collect all the stories in this series prior to this book, you would have had to collect at least 3 books.
Oh, okay.
They were all in one volume from Altus Press. You can order at their website. That's ALTUS, or I think Amazon probably has it.
And there's some slight kind of Lovecraftian themes in some of the stories.
Chief Werewolf is a disembodied spirit from the demon star, Algol, which was in Beyond the Wall of Sleep. It's a real
I was
star.
just reading that.
Yeah.
And what was...
And the Necronomicon and Mysteries of the Worm and Nameless Cults, all those books pop up in the last story. Cadath and the Cold Waste is mentioned, but I wouldn't say this is a hardcore mythos story. I would just say it's werewolf story with some cosmic horrors, some mythos references.
It fits in with Lovecraft, right? Because I mean, family curses and things. I mean, being a werewolf is the big curse, right? And you can't escape it. And it's body horror. It sounds, even if it's not strictly Lovecraftian, sounds very Lovecraftian in theme.
Well, the plot, just the overall theme is that this werewolf from another dimension is creating a gang of werewolves. And one guy is conscripted into it. He gets captured and ends up betraying all the other werewolves before he's executed. And as a result, all of his descendants are cursed by the head of the werewolf clan, not to become werewolves, but to be persecuted by him through the centuries.
Oh, wow.
So he's constantly, taking like at least killing off one member of the family every generation or so.
Jeez.
Rick, what was the name again of that story, the werewolf story that you said Lovecraft gave the author?
Werewolf of Ponkert. Ponkert.
Okay. Awesome.
But Munn corresponded with Lovecraft. Munn's perspective is different from Lovecraft. He's very Christian, religious-oriented. Doesn't have an atheistic viewpoint of the universe.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is I rewatched the Angel episodes, Rick, Hole in the World and Shells, where Fred, well, I won't say what happens. Well, actually, if you haven't watched it by now, Fred gets taken over by an old one.
Yeah.
And it just struck me again how Lovecraftian that was. Not just the overt references, not name dropping or anything like that, but like, where Eve says they don't die like we do, and they're all resting in this, this place, whatever it was called. I thought, wow, you really dug out the Lovecraftian themes for this episode. So,
I guess. Anybody else? I know that Joe probably couldn't see it because it's probably not released in Germany, but anybody see Avengers besides me?
Joe saw it before anybody. What are you talking about?
It was out here before the States.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I saw it. It had to be in 3D, though.
I've not seen it yet.
I couldn't avoid 3D.
Well, what was your verdict?
I liked it. I really, really thought the girl, she's one of those sisters, I forget their names, who played Scarlet Witch. She's excellent. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with her character.
Elizabeth Olsen is her right name.
Yeah, she was excellent. I'd like to see her in other films.
I'd like to see her become romantically involved with the other character who in the comic books became involved with the Scarlet Witch. And that was sort of hinted a little bit at the end.
Is it Hulk?
No, the Vision.
The Vision.
Everybody's going to love the
I haven't seen it. No spoilers.
No. She doesn't become involved. No. In the comics, that is.
In the comics.
Everybody's going to love the Vision.
Go on, Joe. I don't want to do it.
Everybody's going to love the Vision. I mean, everybody knows he's in there, so I'll just tell you, everybody's going to love him. I got one complaint. I would like to see a lot more James Spader. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Really is. He did such a good job, I wanted more.
Well, my wife is out of town next weekend, so Logan and I are going to go see it together next weekend. So, looking forward to it.
Did you notice that Ulysses Claw's name is spelled differently?
Yep. But that's who knows why that.
Oh, I'll tell you why. Because in the comic books they revised his origin.
Oh.
That he's this.
Yeah, but everything.
No, but I was saying there was a a Sergeant Fury villain whose name was Klaue, and he became Ulysses Klaue's father, and supposedly he changed his name from. How do you pronounce that in German? Is that Klau or is it pronounced Claw?
Still Claw.
Okay. Okay, so he changed the spelling of his name from German to English. So that's why.
Well, I'm really glad we can keep the trivia from becoming too esoteric. Something we can all appreciate. And in the 1965 issue of.
Why, Rick and I can do that.
Oh, I bet.
That's pretty easy.
We were born. We read the same comics. Now, I just wanted to that was a little important. Not to, I didn't go into all these little things that. Nobody's mentioned that on a website. All the other stuff they mentioned.
It seems like the internet seems to be of two minds whether or not there is something after the end credits. In Europe, there is definitely something after the end credits. I won't tell you what it is, but it's sure there. I won't even tell you if it's good or bad.
In the U.S., we had something after the middle credits, but if you stayed over the end, you didn't get anything.
This is at the end credits here, and you'll want to see it, trust me.
Well,
in the U.S., you only have a mid-credit scene. So like, in the first Avengers, we had the Baron Strucker scene, and then we had the guys in the restaurant.
Shawarma.
Well, there were no guys in the restaurant or equivalent scene, but you got the equivalent of a Baron Strucker scene.
Well, I'm not giving away any spoilers, I mean, everybody knows the Scarlet Witch is in the movie. Everybody knows the Vision are in the movie. Like I said, her performance I thought was really wonderful. I think the girl really can act. I'd like to see her in a lot of other roles. And knowing the fans that the Vision has, everybody's going to love him. That's as far as I'll go for
Joe and Rick, I need to talk to you guys after we sign
Yep, no problem.
Sure.
Okay, well, everyone, thanks for watching. Huh?
I said, are they in trouble?
Yes, they're always in trouble.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Sean. I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for watching. Give me an hour or so, and I will use random.org, as usual, to pick the winners. And I'll email the winners. I'll post their names on the message board, and I will let Sean and Matt know who to mail the prizes to. So, and thanks for watching. Thanks for being here, Sean.
Thanks.